He'll cry, then grovel, then sign whatever I want. That sentence ended something inside me. I was holding a basket of laundry when I heard it, just standing there in the hallway, one sock in my hand like an idiot. Her voice was casual, confident, echoing from the din like she was rehearsing for a sitcom. And maybe she was. My life had apparently become a punchline in her private show. I didn't move. The door wasn't even shut. She didn't care if I heard her or not. Start with the whole, "I've grown past this marriage" thing, she said, laughing. Like, ease into it. Make it sound thoughtful. Then hit him with the legal stuff fast so he's too shocked to argue. He's such a, what's the word, softy. Opal laughed. I recognized her voice. Her friend. The same one who once cried at our wedding, drunk on red wine and sentiment. Now she was playing coach while my wife plotted the final scene of a marriage I still thought we were in. I stood there like a ghost in my own house, listening to my wife rehearse how to humiliate me. Her voice was gleeful, effortless, and each word she spoke made me smaller. The shirt I was holding slid from my hand. I should have stormed in. Should have said something, anything. But I didn't. I just walked to the garage, sat on the cold cement floor next to the lawn fertilizer we never used, and stared at the water heater. For 42 minutes. I know because I checked the time. Over and over. Hoping maybe I'd wake up. When I came back inside, she was in the kitchen pouring tea like it was just another Tuesday. She looked at me, smiled like nothing had happened, and asked if I wanted lemon in mine. I nodded. I sat down. I drank it. That night, I lay awake beside her. She scrolled on her phone until she dozed off. Her breathing evened out. Mine never did. The next morning, I pretended to go to work. Instead, I drove to the lake and sat in my car. Called a lawyer I found online after typing in how to file for divorce first quietly. Her name was Deirdre. Her voice was calm. I told her I needed to beat someone to a punchline. She didn't even flinch. You want it clean or explosive? She asked. I told her, make it clean, but let her feel it. We met 2 days later. I signed everything. No hesitation. No questions. I brought photos. Receipts. Screenshots. A copy of the prenup she forgot we signed. Deirdre said, "Oh, she's gonna be surprised." That's when I saw it. A flyer on her desk. Deliver with drama, serve where it stings. And then it clicked. Mallory's office was hosting a potluck the next Friday. A catered event. Open invitation. All her favorite people. Her boss. Her assistant. Her new interns. She wanted a show? I'd bring the curtain down myself. The weirdest part wasn't that she was planning to blindside me with a divorce. It wasn't even that she was laughing while doing it. The strangest part, the part that messed with my mind more than anything else, was how normal everything felt afterward. Like nothing had happened. Like the walls weren't echoing with her words. She moved through the days like a woman who was winning something. You know that walk people get when they've already imagined the outcome and it's exactly what they want? She had that walk. Hair done more often. That smile she used to save for rare moments was suddenly frequent. Not directed at me, though. Just hovering. The next 3 days were a masterclass in deception. She brought home dinner one night. Thai. My favorite. She lit a candle. Played jazz in the background. I watched her like a stranger at an exhibit, trying to decode if any of this was genuine. But I knew it wasn't. I knew she was buttering the bread before slicing the neck. One night, she climbed into bed early, slid her cold feet over to my side like she used to, and whispered, "I missed you today." I flinched. Not visibly, but enough to feel it in my stomach. I wanted to scream, "What part of me do you miss? The fool who's about to sign away half his life? The one you're mocking behind closed doors?" But I said nothing. I just whispered back, "Me too," and stared at the ceiling until dawn. While she dreamed beside me, probably about new beginnings, clean exits, some yoga instructor she met on a retreat, I was planning something else. Not revenge. Not spite. Just truth. Naked, undeniable truth, served with a side of timing. Thursday night, she reminded me about the office potluck. "You should come," she said. "They've heard so much about you." I smiled and said I'd think about it. She laughed, probably thinking she was being gracious. She didn't know I'd already cleared my schedule for that exact afternoon. My lawyer had made arrangements. The papers were signed, sealed, and scheduled to be served at precisely 1:15 p.m. when the potluck would be in full swing. It wasn't a cruel plan. It was precise. She was planning a performance. I just decided to change the script. Friday arrived like a storm I knew was coming but couldn't avoid. I wore my best shirt. Not out of pettiness, just to feel like I had some part of myself together. It was cold, too. One of those sharp, dry days that makes everything feel thinner, more brittle. She left the house glowing. Red lipstick, big earrings. The necklace I gave her on our 7th anniversary, the one she said she lost last spring, was suddenly back around her neck. I wondered if she wore it to soften the story she was about to tell her coworkers. He was sweet, but I needed more. We drifted. That sort of thing. At 1:08, I parked across the street from her office. Not inside. I didn't want to make it theatrical. Just close enough to witness. I sat in the car and watched as people carried in casserole trays and boxes of cookies. Laughter spilled from the glass lobby. Her laughter. At 1:14, a silver Honda pulled into the fire lane. Out stepped a woman in a navy suit, Deirdre's assistant. She walked like she'd done this before. Calm. Direct. Clutching a manila envelope like it held nothing more than a brunch menu. I rolled down the window just a little. Just in time to hear the shift. The glass doors opened. The assistant stepped in. A moment passed. Then another. And then her voice. Loud. Unmistakable. Confused. Wait, what is this? Is this a joke? Another second. No. No, this can't be. He wouldn't. You didn't even. Pause. Oh my God. I didn't need to see her face to know what was on it. I'd imagined that expression for days. Confusion, then realization, then horror. All unfolding like a slow exhale. From where I sat, I watched her stumble through the lobby like the floor had shifted beneath her. She looked around, maybe for me, maybe for someone to laugh with. But no one was laughing. She stepped outside, scanning the parking lot. Her eyes flicked over my car, then past it. She didn't see me, but I saw her. Not the woman I married. Not the woman I thought I loved. Just a person who underestimated the man she thought would grovel. I didn't drive away immediately. I let the moment sit. I wanted her to have time with it. To hold the envelope. To feel the weight of all her assumptions crumpling. She texted me 5 minutes later. What the hell is this? I didn't respond. At 1:43, she sent another one. Jonah, please. Can we talk? No. No, we couldn't. Because now, finally, we were speaking the same language. She didn't come home that night. I expected that. Around 6:30 p.m., I heard her car outside. The engine idled for a few minutes, then sputtered off. But the front door never opened. I waited in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a chipped mug of coffee I hadn't touched. 10 minutes. 15. Still nothing. Eventually, I peeked through the blinds. Her car was gone. No message. No explanation. Just disappearance. Like if she didn't acknowledge what happened, she could pretend it hadn't. I almost laughed. The queen of rehearsed exits had finally walked into a scene she didn't prepare for. By 9 p.m., I was still staring at my phone, watching her last message sit unanswered. Jonah, please. Can we talk? No. She didn't want to talk before. She wanted a reaction. She wanted to puppeteer my emotions, watch me squirm while she held the script. But now the silence wasn't hers to give. It was mine. I finally left the kitchen when my legs started to go numb. Walked down the hallway, looked into our bedroom, her side of the bed perfectly made. My pillow still indented from last night. Her lotion bottle was gone from the nightstand. Toothbrush, too. That told me everything I needed to know. She was trying to flip the narrative. If she vanished first, maybe she could be the wronged one. Maybe I was the coward who blindsided her. It would be poetic if it weren't so pathetic. The next morning, I got an email from someone I didn't recognize. Subject line. Is everything okay with you and Mal? It was her coworker, Darren. He'd met me once at a holiday mixer 2 years ago. I remembered him because he shook my hand like it was a wet napkin and called me Mr. Mallory. At the time, I laughed. Now, not so much. I didn't reply. But I opened social media out of pure masochism. I don't usually scroll. Not my thing. But something told me I'd find answers there. Sure enough, I did. Mallory had posted a photo that morning, an old one of her standing by the lake during our Vermont trip. The caption? Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is start over. And a dove emoji. The comments made me sick. You got this, queen. He didn't deserve you anyway. Rebirth season. It was like watching a forest burn down and reading comments about how pretty the smoke looked. She was trying to get ahead of it, painting herself as brave, as empowered, as misunderstood. But no one clapped at the potluck, did they? No one high-fived her when she was handed legal documents in front of the shrimp platter and 2 interns. I called Deirdre. She answered with a dry chuckle. Saw the post, she said. Cute caption. She's making herself the victim, I muttered. She's making herself the main character, Deirdre corrected. There's a difference. She advised me to stay quiet. Don't post. Don't respond. Let her run with her performance. Because when reality hits, she'll look around and realize there's no audience left. That afternoon, I got a voicemail from her mother. I don't know what's going on between you two, but Mallory's been crying for hours. I never wanted to interfere, but this is cruel, Jonah. She loved you. I sat there, listening to that voice say she loved you, and it felt like being punched in the chest with an open hand. Not because it hurt, but because it insulted my intelligence. Did love sound like whispered rehearsals with a friend about how I'd break? Did love look like years of planning the perfect exit while pretending everything was fine? Did love post selfies with captions about strength 2 hours after being served? No. Love didn't live here anymore. Maybe it never really did. That night, she finally came home. Not dramatically. Not screaming or sobbing. Just walked in like she'd left something behind. She looked different. Hair tied up hastily. No makeup. Wrinkled blouse. Eyes puffy. Phone clutched tightly in one hand like a lifeline. I was sitting in the living room, laptop open, pretending to be interested in emails. She stopped in the doorway. Didn't speak. I didn't look up. Eventually, I said, "If you're here to get your things," I boxed up the bathroom stuff. Silence. Then, "I wasn't trying to hurt you." That sentence is a favorite of cowards. People always say that after they've already lit the fire and watched the house burn. Like if their intent was clean, the ash doesn't matter. I didn't answer. She stepped closer. "Jonah, I didn't expect you to do it first." There it was. The real pain. I robbed her of the monologue. I stole the spotlight. I delivered the ending before her opening act. And now, without her script, she had nothing to say. "I didn't think you'd actually leave," she added, and her voice cracked. Still, I said nothing. Because at that moment, for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I finally realized I wasn't the weak one. She was. She stood there, waiting for me to say something, to break the silence like I always did. In the past, every argument ended the same way, me folding. Me smoothing things over. Me convincing myself that if I just explained how much I loved her one more time, maybe she'd remember how to love me back. But I didn't move this time. I just closed my laptop and stood up slowly, brushing past her like she was a coat rack in the hallway. I didn't even look at her. That, I think, wounded her more than anything. Later that night, I heard her pacing upstairs. She opened drawers, opened them again, closed them harder. I could hear the creak of our closet door as she rifled through hangers. She didn't cry, at least not loudly. She just moved like a storm with no thunder, sharp, unsettling, unpredictable. Around midnight, she came back downstairs and found me in the kitchen sipping water. Her face was flushed, and her mascara was smudged like she had tried putting herself together and failed. She leaned on the counter like we were still having quiet, late-night talks. But there was nothing quiet in the air between us anymore. "I know I messed up," she said. Not a real apology. Just a vague acknowledgement. The kind you offer when you're more interested in erasing guilt than owning it. "You rehearsed how to leave me," I said finally. "That's not messing up. That's preparing." She opened her mouth like she was about to argue, but the words didn't come. So she changed tactics. "I was scared of what we'd become. You don't even see me anymore." That line, "You don't even see me anymore." I'd heard that before. In movies. In therapy podcasts. It's the battle cry of people who are already halfway out the door but want you to hold it open for them on the way out. I did see her. That was the problem. I saw all of it. The detachment, the contempt, the slow erosion of who she used to be and what we used to share. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I asked, "Did you really think I was going to fall apart? Cry? Beg?" She blinked, startled by the question. "You said it, Mallory. That I'd cry, then grovel. Did you actually want that? Did you need it?" She looked down, then away. "I didn't mean it like that." "Yes," I cut in, "you did. You meant every word. You just didn't think I'd hear it." The silence after that was longer. Heavier. She left the room like it was too small to breathe in, but I knew it wasn't the room choking her. It was the mirror I held up. She slept on the couch that night. Or tried to. I heard her shifting, tossing, groaning quietly in frustration. She wasn't used to discomfort. She thought she'd be somewhere else by now. In control. In command of the narrative. Instead, she was curled on scratchy cushions, staring at a ceiling that no longer held any promises. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up. Her suitcase was missing. The house was still. I thought maybe she'd fled to her mother's place or checked into a hotel. I didn't care. I spent that day doing something I hadn't done in years, breathing. Not waiting for a text. Not tiptoeing around mood swings. Just being. I cleaned the garage. I called an old friend. I even made myself a real breakfast. Not cereal. Eggs. Toast. Coffee. With peace. But that peace didn't last long. By early afternoon, I got a message from her work email. Not from her directly, from HR. Subject: Mallory, personal emergency. They were notifying me that she had taken an indefinite leave of absence due to private family matters. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just trying to rewrite the story online anymore. She was rewriting it everywhere. Trying to reshape the perception before people could connect the dots. Before the whispers at the potluck could become conversations. That evening, another message came. This one was from her. I didn't expect it to unravel like this. I know you're angry. I know I was wrong. But I don't want to go out like this. Can we sit down like adults and just talk? I stared at it for a long time. She wanted to talk now. Now that the script had failed. Now that the applause never came. Now that she realized there would be no gentle fade-out scene where I wept in her arms and said, "I'll sign whatever you need, just don't leave me." No, we weren't actors. This wasn't rehearsal. This was real. And in the real world, you don't get to choreograph someone else's heartbreak. Still, something in me wanted to say yes. Not because I missed her, but because some broken part of me still needed answers. Closure, maybe. Or confirmation that the woman I once loved had truly disappeared for good. So I agreed. Just once. One final conversation. In a neutral place. Where the stage was level. Where no one got to monologue. And where, finally, I'd get to ask her the one question I'd been too afraid to say out loud. We agreed to meet at a quiet little cafe near downtown. Neutral ground. Neither of us had memories there. No anniversaries. No photos. Just a nondescript place with average coffee, slightly chipped mugs, and quiet jazz playing too softly to recognize the tune. It felt appropriate. Ordinary. Like the version of our relationship she'd spent months pretending was the problem. I got there first. I always did. I sat at a table by the window, the kind meant for two people who still wanted to be seen together. I didn't bring anything to distract myself. No phone in hand. No book. Just me and the weight of everything I didn't say when she still thought she had all the power. She walked in exactly 4 minutes late, carrying a large tote bag like it was armor. Hair down. Lips bare. Her expression somewhere between guilt and strategy. She didn't hug me. Didn't even smile. Just sat down, folded her hands on the table, and sighed. "I'm glad you came," she said. I didn't respond. I watched her, waiting to see if this was a performance or the real Mallory. But the truth is, I no longer knew the difference. That was part of the damage. She leaned forward a little. "I've had some time to think. About everything." Of course she had. I gave her silence. And silence makes people desperate to fill the void with meaning, whether real or convenient. "I know I hurt you," she continued. "I said some horrible things. I don't even know why I said them the way I did." "You rehearsed them," I said finally. She winced. "You practiced how to leave me, Mallory. That wasn't a slip. That wasn't heat of the moment. That was rehearsed." I know. Her voice cracked, but I couldn't tell if it was emotional or manipulative. She was always good at weaving the two. I was scared. Of what? She hesitated. Of being stuck. Of waking up at 50 and realizing I never got to figure out who I really was. We got married so young. I never dated around. I never had space. And somewhere along the way, I started resenting you for making me feel safe. I shook my head slowly. "You resented me for not hurting you." She frowned. "No, that's not what I meant. It's what you said. That I was safe. Like that's a bad thing. Comfortable isn't always fulfilling, Jonah." There it was. The line. The kind of line you find on social media, in self-help posts, in friend group wine night discussions that encourage abandoning something steady for something bold. And I realized in that moment, I was never going to get a genuine apology. Because in her mind, this wasn't betrayal. It was evolution. And I was the caterpillar she had to leave behind. I leaned back, letting the silence stretch. She reached into her tote and pulled out a small envelope. My name was written on it in her handwriting. The same script that once pinned birthday cards and inside jokes. She pushed it across the table. "What's this?" "Something I wrote. A letter. I figured if we couldn't talk face to face, Maybe you'd read it later. It's everything I felt. Everything I couldn't say. I didn't touch it. I want you to read it eventually. I need to know you understand where I was coming from. I understand perfectly, I said. You wanted out. But you didn't want to be the villain. So you rehearsed a speech that made you look brave and me look broken. Her face flushed. That's not fair. No, what wasn't fair was giving up on us and pretending it was my fault for not being exciting enough. She blinked rapidly. For once, she didn't have a counterpoint. Just shifting eyes and a slowly unraveling composure. I stood up, not in anger, just in finality. You want to know the truth? I asked, quietly. I did cry. That night, after I heard you laughing with Opal, I sat in the garage and cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Because I realized I was living with someone who had already left me, emotionally, long ago. I just hadn't caught up to the reality yet. She stared at me, mouth slightly open. But I'm not crying now. And I'm not going to. Because I finally see you clearly. Not the woman I married. Not the version of you I tried to hold on to. Just the real you. And honestly, I don't miss her. With that, I left. I didn't touch the envelope. I didn't look back. I walked down the sidewalk under a gray sky that finally matched the weather inside my chest. And for the first time in weeks, the tightness behind my ribs started to loosen. That night, I went home and boxed up the wedding album. Not in rage. Not as some grand symbolic gesture. Just because I was done keeping things that weren't real anymore. 3 days passed. Not a word from her. No calls. No texts. Just static. And for the first time in what felt like years, I didn't dread the silence. I welcomed it. Let it wash over me like a soundproof curtain between my peace and the wreckage she left behind. I finally started sleeping through the night. Eating real food. Hearing the tick of the clock without feeling like time was mocking me. But then the silence cracked. It was Thursday afternoon. I was finishing up a shift at the clinic when my coworker Kim walked in, phone in hand, eyebrows raised like he'd just seen a ghost. Hey, dude, is this about your wife? I looked up, confused. What? He held his phone toward me. Someone posted this in our town's community group. Didn't tag names, but it's definitely about you. I think. On the screen was a screenshot of a Facebook post. Long, emotional, dramatic. Some people think serving divorce papers at a public event is powerful. To me, it's cowardice. It's using spectacle to hide guilt. I was made to look like a villain by someone too afraid to admit his own failures as a partner. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I just wanted to breathe. And instead, I was humiliated in front of my colleagues. No name. No tags. But the comments gave it away. You deserve so much better, girl. People don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You're so brave for speaking out. It spread like wildfire. Everyone knew it was about Mallory. And without ever saying my name, she'd painted me as an insecure man-child who couldn't handle rejection without turning it into public revenge. I stared at the post, feeling my throat tighten, not from shame, but from disbelief. It wasn't just that she lied. It was how convincing the lie was. She knew how to phrase things just right. Omit key facts. Layer just enough vulnerability so people rushed to protect her. She made a career out of perception. This was just another audience. I wanted to scream. Instead, I walked outside, sat in my car, and opened the email from my lawyer. I hadn't planned to reply to Mallory's little narrative. I was going to let it fade. But this was deliberate. This was her manipulating the story, again, only now, in front of hundreds. I called Deirdre. She's baiting you, she said bluntly. You go online now. You look reactive. Defensive. Small. She made it sound like I was emotionally abusive. I know. But if we want to win this quietly, we don't argue in the comments. I was quiet for a long time. What if I have something that flips the narrative? There was a pause. Jonah, do you? I nodded. I still have the audio. I hadn't meant to record it. My phone was on the kitchen counter that night she laughed with Opal. I'd been recording a recipe tutorial earlier and forgot to stop the voice memo. It captured everything. Every word. Her mocking my emotions. Plotting the timing. Bragging about how I'd fold like a cheap lawn chair. I sent it to Deirdre. 10 minutes later, she called back. If we use this, we don't just win. We bury her. But I wasn't interested in burying her. I was interested in ending this, cleanly, completely. I told her to hold on to it. Not publish it. Not leak it. Not yet. Because something still didn't sit right with me. That night, I did something stupid. Or brave. Depends on how you look at it. I texted Opal. I know you were part of that conversation. I don't want to fight. I just need one honest answer. How long had she been planning it? She responded 5 minutes later. Over a year. I told her to be honest. She wouldn't listen. Said you'd break too easily if she did it the nice way. There it was. No sugar. No confusion. Just the truth I already knew but hadn't let myself feel fully. She hadn't just drifted away. She had built an escape route in secret. Brick by brick. Day by day. But here's where things shifted. Opal sent a second message. I also told her not to sleep with Darren. But she did that anyway too. I froze. Darren. Her coworker. The one who emailed me. The one who told me she was going through something personal. The same guy who, at that potluck, tried to comfort her after the papers were served. I stared at the screen, barely breathing. Are you saying she cheated? Opal wrote back instantly. Emotionally for months. Physically? I think twice. Maybe more. Sorry, Jonah. I kept my mouth shut too long. My world tilted again, but this time, it didn't break me. It focused me. She lied. She manipulated. She humiliated me. And now she was rewriting the truth to save face while burying her own betrayal. And I had everything I needed. She wanted a spotlight? Fine. I'd give her one. Just not the one she scripted. There's something terrifyingly calm about the moment right before you drop the truth. Not anger. Not triumph. Just stillness. That's what I felt the morning I made the decision. No more protecting her story. No more shielding people from the fact she tried to bury. For weeks, I'd been walking through the ashes of our marriage like I was the one who burned it down, when all I ever did was try to hold it together while she set fire behind my back. After Opal's text, I didn't sleep. Not out of sadness, not even out of betrayal, just clarity. It was like my mind finally finished connecting the threads she tried to keep hidden. The sudden distance, the locked phone, the fake work trips, the guilt flipping, and now, the affair she'd carefully wrapped in ambiguity. I kept wondering if she ever truly planned to tell me, or if I was just supposed to disappear from the picture silently while she slipped into a new life with a cleaner conscience. But conscience doesn't work that way. By the following afternoon, Deirdre had everything assembled. The audio. A timeline. A quiet but legally airtight response to the claims Mallory had dropped like poison seeds across social media. But we didn't go public, not in the way she had. No dramatic Facebook post. No all-caps call-out. Just a simple legal letter to her workplace's internal affairs, explaining the nature of what she was falsely presenting in a professional environment. Attached was the audio file. We didn't send it out of revenge. We sent it to stop the bleeding. Later that day, I got a call from Darren. He was agitated. His voice shaky. Jonah, man, this is getting out of hand. I didn't say anything. I let him talk. I didn't know she was married when it started. She said you two were separated. She made it sound like the divorce was mutual. Was it mutual the night she laughed about how I'd beg her not to leave? I asked. Silence. I didn't know about that, he said weakly. She rehearsed her exit like a TED Talk. Darren. You were part of the script. You just didn't realize which role you were playing. I swear, I didn't mean for any of this. I'm not your priest, I snapped. I don't need your confession. I needed the truth. Now I have it. He tried to apologize. I hung up. That night, for the first time, I did something Mallory always warned me not to. I opened up online. Not on Reddit, not on Facebook, but on my own terms. I wrote a message to my small circle, friends and family who'd been asking for weeks what happened. I kept it simple. I told the truth. I wrote. I didn't want this to be public. But since someone else made our divorce a talking point, I owe it to the people I care about to set the record straight. Mallory rehearsed leaving me behind my back, mocked my emotions, and started another relationship while still married. I didn't serve her at the potluck out of pettiness. I did it because I knew if I didn't, she'd spin a story where I was the villain. I have proof of what really happened, but I hope I never have to share it. All I want is to move on in peace. I hope someday she finds honesty, not just with others, but with herself. No dramatics. No jabs. Just a window, clean and clear. Within an hour, the likes and comments started rolling in. Quiet support. DMs from people I hadn't spoken to in years saying they were proud of me. And something even more unexpected, a message from one of Mallory's coworkers. We always knew something was off. She talked like she was already divorced for months. Thank you for confirming what a lot of us suspected. I read that message 3 times. It hit me then, deeply, how far Mallory had gone to isolate me, not just emotionally, but publicly. She created a world where she could play the victim without ever showing the crime. And now that world was crumbling. The final straw came the next morning. A letter dropped into my mailbox. Not an email, not a text. It was from her. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a single page. I didn't think you'd ever be the one to take control. I underestimated you. I thought I knew you completely, but I didn't know how strong you could be when pushed. I did lie. I did manipulate. I did fall for someone else while you were still trying to love me. You didn't deserve that. You never did. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a reply. Just know I finally see it now. And it hurts worse than I thought it would. I held that letter in my hand and waited to feel something. Anger. Satisfaction. Closure. But what I felt was something different. Relief. Not because she finally admitted the truth, but because it no longer mattered. I didn't keep the letter. I read it once, standing there on the porch with the cool morning sun warming the wood beneath my feet, and then I folded it quietly and dropped it into the paper shredder just inside the door. Not out of spite, not out of anger, just because I knew that holding on to it would be like holding on to an old coat that no longer fits, something that only takes up space and keeps you from moving on. The next few weeks were quieter than I ever imagined they could be. No more back and forth. No more passive-aggressive texts or vague online posts. Mallory had gone completely silent, and that silence wasn't empty this time, it was freedom. I finally had room to think without defending myself, to breathe without questioning if I'd inhaled too deeply, to live like my peace wasn't temporary. I started going on long walks again. It had been years since I let myself just wander, no destination, no purpose. Just a playlist, an old hoodie, and the simple act of moving forward. Somewhere along the way, I started sleeping better. I wasn't checking my phone for texts that would never come or dreading the moment I'd walk through the front door and feel like a stranger in my own house. One day, I finally pulled out our old wedding photo. Not to mourn, not even to remember, just to look at it from the outside. Two people smiling, full of hope, frozen in time. I realized then that I didn't regret marrying her. I regretted thinking that love meant tolerating being treated like less. But without that chapter, I might have never learned what I actually deserve. And the truth was, I deserved more than survival. I deserved joy, safety, honesty. So I started building that. Not with someone else. Not yet. I wasn't rushing into anything. This wasn't about proving I was better off or rebounding into something new. It was about rediscovering the version of myself I'd quietly set aside over the years. The one who used to paint on Sundays. The one who loved reading books with creased spines and forgotten bookmarks. The one who made playlists for road trips that never happened. I even went back to that little cafe where we met to talk, the neutral ground. I sat alone this time, by the same window. Ordered the same coffee. This time, I smiled. Not because I missed her, but because I didn't. And that, more than anything, told me I was healing. A week later, I got invited to a small gathering through mutual friends. People who hadn't picked sides, who just missed seeing me out in the world. I almost said no. Then, at the last second, I said yes. Not because I was ready, but because I was done letting fear write my script. At that party, I met someone. Not in a movie magic, fireworks way. Not a soulmate. Just someone kind. Real. Someone who asked about my story and didn't flinch when I told the truth. Someone who laughed without performing. Who listened without waiting to respond. We talked for hours, nothing heavy, nothing forced. Just two people being honest in a world full of edits. And that was enough. That night, as I drove home, windows down, music low, I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the humiliation, the pain. But more than that, I thought about how far I'd come. Mallory once said I'd cry, then beg, then sign anything she wanted. She was wrong. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. And the only thing I signed was my own peace. I walked away with my dignity intact, my future wide open, and a quiet strength she never imagined I had. And in the end, that's the story I get to keep.